Say, kids, what time is it?
The future is coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on.
Yes, and we're coming on to you live from the beach in Aptos, California. Beautiful day today, actually sunny today.
That's right. We did a little time slipping. It was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Got that ocean just bringing in the fog and making everything a little hazy.
Little bit hazy.
Yeah.
And we got Bobby in San Francisco. He's back after being in the flowers last week, the Carrizo Plains.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be here. It's sunny here, too. I appreciate the sun so much now.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Nothing like a sunny day, warm day in San Francisco, I tell you.
And we're going to talk about space and what people are still thinking about the eclipse and people's various adventures. Second hour, we've got Dave Welch coming in, who flew his very own homemade plane out to check out the eclipse. So we're
I would call it a homemade plane.
Stories.
It's a Cessna 182.
Well,
But he put a lot of time into it.
Yeah, he made it go.
He did. He and Amy had a great time. They're going to tell us all about it.
That's right.
As they chase the eclipse.
Yes, our fellow compatriots on Santa Cruz Voice.
Yeah, a lot of good stories. One of the interesting breakthroughs lately has been some new apps that allow you to convert text into a song.
Oh, yeah, that's really
a song, right?
Breakthrough technology, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of our regular contributors, Greg Panos, down in Long Beach area, used Udio to create a little tune for our show. And we want to play you a sample of that. This was done with Udio. It's a beta program. This is a program that goes text to songs. And you can write some text about a song about like your friend's birthday. And it'll create a new tune. It'll do it country western or rock or progressive house or whatever you're into. It gives you lots of different choices. Here, check this out. Here we go.
Tune in to the Dr. Future Show for a weekly fix. Information so exciting and new, it gives you kicks. Internet radio featuring Dr. Future Alan Lundell and his partner and mine's son. Marion tells it so well. They discuss the latest in space and virtual reality, exciting us with science breakthroughs and schism, artificial intelligence and techno-spiritualism. Amazing guests calling in from outer space, synchronizing our brains with their interface.
Okay, there you go. I can understand
Thanks,
it. I would
Greg.
probably
Thanks,
use
Richard.
a little
Thanks,
lower
Udio.
music, a little more ambient music in the background, I think. Would be good. But hey, not bad for the first time that we've seen that program work. Udio. Okay, so let's go on to some other news here. Did you know that investors are growing increasingly weary of AI?
Tell me more. It's the latest buzzword. I would be very surprised if there weren't some people getting tired of it.
People are getting kind of weary of hearing about it all the time. But that's humans, right? We kind of wear out on hearing the same thing over and over and over again. And investors are increasingly weary of it. Well, what's the evidence of that? Apparently, both private investment, that is investments in startups from VCs, and corporate investment, mergers and acquisitions, are down in 2023 versus the prior year.
I'm really surprised because all the news was about how much more investment was
Greg.
going in that direction.
Yeah, how much more? We're seeing more of the fruits of the labors probably from earlier research. But they say that AI-related mergers and acquisitions fell from $117.16 billion in 22 to $80.6 billion in 23, from 117 to 80 billion, down 31%. And that private investment dipped from 103 billion to 95 billion. So the total investment in AI dropped to 189.2 billion last year, 20% decline compared
doing
to
the math?
22. TechCrunch. But the thing is that there's certain areas that are doing very well, like the stuff that we play with,
the
AI
image
media
stuff and
right.
the video stuff and the audio stuff.
Right, and generative AI seems to be doing very well.
Right. We've been having a lot of fun playing. There's so many new tools coming out. You can hardly keep up with it.
Yeah, and more AI companies are receiving investments than ever before. There were 1,812 AI startups in 23, up 40% from 22. One analyst.
23 was a very good year.
Yeah, in terms of the tech coming in, for sure. AI investing is spreading out. Anthropic, OpenAI. That's our street.
That's the beach for you.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we have a nice long stretch of road right in front of the beach here, so it's become very popular with hot rods.
Yeah, people love to race down the street late at night because they can get away with it. So the neighbors took some action.
Yes. So now they put some speed bumps in the road, and one of them's right in front of our place. So we might see some of these cars
flipping over
right in front of us. You'll hear it here.
Yeah, if that happens, we'll definitely let you know.
So as I was saying,
AI investment.
John David Lovelock, a Gartner analyst, says that the count of billion-dollar investments has slowed and is all but over. Large AI models require massive investments. The market is now more influenced by the tech companies that will utilize existing AI products, services, and offerings to build new offerings.
Adobe.
Yeah, Adobe's all in. They're even incorporating elements of all the leaders in the media AI category. Like Pika
it seems
Labs
like NAB was a real old-fashioned industry love fest. You had all of these AI companies coming together in Las Vegas during this last week, and it seems like a lot of new partnerships have come away. Adobe seems like it's investing
buying up lots of companies,
a bunch of AIs, or at least licensing their software for their user base, which of course includes us.
Yeah, they're even incorporating OpenAI's Sora, which is one of the main video products coming from OpenAI that allows you to do cinematic quality video from text. That's going to be incorporated into the Adobe line coming up.
Yeah. Before you know it, Al and I are just going to be avatars.
We'll see. We'll have lots of avatars, actually, the way it's going.
Yeah, we've been turning all our friends into avatars.
That's true. Yeah, we've got quite a few friends that are now avatars and will be in our movies. As we're gearing up to make more movies.
At our own.
The podcast is just to keep you abreast of kind of what's unfolding in other arenas here.
If we can put out one little chapter of our comic strip a month, I'll be impressed.
Yeah, well,
it still takes work. It doesn't matter
it takes focused attention. There's so much.
There's still a lot of detail.
Yeah, the generative AI startups reached 25 billion in 23, ninefold increase over 22, and 30 times over 2019. So,
do we know anybody who's scooping up that money? Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Generative AI. Well, I would say that Pika Labs probably is one. I would say OpenAI is scooping up a lot of money. Runway is scooping up money. Probably Hyper. They're all in the generative AI universe, and they're doing really well.
Right. And you said we can't get to DALL-E anymore, right? That's been scooped up into some new...
DALL-E has been canceled for DALL-E 3. DALL-E 2 is free. DALL-E 3, you have to have a $20 a month membership to OpenAI's club, or walled garden, to get access to that at this point. Right. But I don't know. Everybody wants $20 a month.
Yeah, well, the subscription model, that's the only way the money keeps flowing, right?
But they're not getting it. And there's too much competition. There's too much in this arena. I think that what we'll see is a shakedown where companies like Adobe will get a lot of the good stuff and people will just get one subscription with them and not worry about it.
Well, that's what's already happening.
Yeah, that is kind of what's happening. So you got to expect these things. This is capitalism at work here.
It's like which club is giving you the best options, the best bang for the buck?
Yeah, where are you getting the most?
We've been in the Adobe Club for a long time because, of course, we've been addicted to Photoshop for our whole career. And it got to a point where you couldn't just pirate the old versions anymore. You had to cough up your $600, $700 a year for access to their entire library. It just feels fair. It feels like they give you so much for the money. Somebody's got to pay the bills. It may as well be the subscribers.
But in terms of new stuff, Bobby just sent in something called Micro Llama.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's for the phone or iPad, and it's a large language model assistant that iPhone. Right now, it's free if you download it. It's at the Apple Store.
Smart Siri?
Smarter, yeah. And it's personalized, and it runs locally instead of calling up the web. You don't have to be connected to the internet. It's not a cloud-based service. It's running locally on your phone. You can personalize.
Okay, I'm local personal assistant, Micro Llama. Micro llama. Now, what's its real advantage is what I wonder. What will it give me that I don't have now that I would care about? Can it access the web for me, too? Can it make phone calls? Can it open and close apps?
Yes, it can answer questions, and it's personalized to you as a person. It can recognize you and what your habits are, make decisions for you also. Yeah.
Are you going to try it out for us, Bobby?
I have downloaded it last night. I haven't even tried it out, but it's on my iPad. So
Okay.
after running
Maybe
it,
next
yeah.
week.
Yeah.
Micro llama, here we come. There was a very interesting piece this week on decrypt.com about how music fans are not really going to care if the music they're listening to is made by AI or not.
Yeah, the author is not really people's concern
Yeah,
unless
like-
they themselves are artists.
Like, how many people really care about the musicians as opposed to just
Well,
enjoying the song?
I think a lot of people, it really depends on your relationship as an artist to the artist. And do you pay attention to the person because you love them? Do you pay attention to them because you emulate them? Or are they just part of your background noise and you're just letting it flow but not caring about the details?
Yeah, I think it depends on who you are. Some
Yeah.
people really are big into musicians.
Yeah, right.
Most aren't.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you reach a point where you can get songs based on what you want to hear about. That's when that's what you care about. It's more about what the song is about and whether or not it's a tune that you can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
I would think Spotify would get onto this AI thing. Try to, they have their personalized channels that, like radar release or mix of the week or what on their channels. And you start inputting the songs you like, and then it pulls up songs similar. But
Yeah.
I think when they do this, they'll know what you've been talking about in the last week and bring up songs based on that.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking that too. That each topic that we discuss could have a new song about it before we talk about it.
That's right.
That's going live with the AI.
Yeah.
No accounting for taste or quality, but trusting the source.
If it's got to be good, though. It's got to reach a point of quality where you don't mind. But I tried one. I've got 4 different songs, and none of them I like. Right? None of them. Here, let me just give you an example of ones I hate. Here we go. The prompt was a song about creating a better future by surfing the latest insights in tech and consciousness.
They spark there for all to see. The breakthroughs in tech, the insights that stretch, the knowledge we find. They're yours, they're mine, and growth can come to everyone.
There you go. No. Would I actually play that for the show? Well, I just did, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you would.
The same prompt then created this.
They spark there for all to see. The breakthroughs in tech, the insights that stretch, the knowledge we find.
See how different that is from the first one?
Yeah.
One more sample here.
That's better, huh?
Trials and gleams, futuristic minds. I think we're evolving fast and chase the now.
Chase them now. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
So there you have it. But the idea that we could have a song for every story that we cover is a compelling one. And with a little bit of maybe advanced prep, we can create a good song for each story number.
And visuals too.
Yeah, and visuals too, right. Let's go full visual. Yeah, I think that's going to happen very shortly. We're gearing up the visual elements for our show here now. It's going to be a lot of fun. Tesla is dumping their affordable car. You heard about that? The
No.
$25,000 electric
yeah,
car.
we talked about that a little bit in the last few weeks.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Chinese competition about to hit, and so Tesla's pivoting on that and going away from a cheap electric car to a robo-taxi plan.
Oh, really? So their cheap cars are going to be the fleet?
No, they're not
autonomous
making
fleet?
cheap cars. Uh-huh. They're letting the Chinese do that.
Oh, okay.
And they're going to stick with their more expensive cars, and they're going to probably have full self-driving capabilities to do robo-taxis with them.
I see.
Yeah, but this has been a plan to have an affordable mass market car from Tesla. Not going to happen,
Okay.
at least initially.
If you didn't already get yours, it's too late.
It's a dramatic U-turn.
Okay.
It's a promise to have an electric car accessible to everyone.
Is thinking if BYD can produce a $10,000 car, they can't compete with that.
No.
Put a brain in your car and it decides to make money while you sleep by being a dual purpose car and robo-taxi at night. And then what would you buy? Would you buy a $35,000 car with a brain that makes you money, or would you buy a cheap car, pay for the electricity? Yeah, I think that's the choice.
You could use the expensive Tesla to make money for you as it goes around and does deliveries. Maybe you have a robot on board that also does DoorDash, and you'd have a cheap car and you'd actually drive yourself.
Yeah.
Something like that. The full self-driving is really one of the big issues right now. You can either wake up and suddenly have an extra $1,000 in your bank account, or you can find out you're being sued for driving somebody over a cliff. You never know with this software. It still has some bugs in it that need to be worked out before we have full self-driving that we can just count on. And there's a lot of stories about accidents still happening with the full self-driving that are a bit concerning to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I think it's probably safer to be in one of these self-driving cars at the present state than having your wife drive you around. I don't know.
Yeah, you think? Would you trust yourself in a self-driving car at this point?
Well, in about a year, I think I would.
About a year.
For sure.
Okay. All right. Well, I can see that. Closer to home here, and I thought this was interesting because this is a story about geoengineering. Now we have heard about chemtrails in the sky and all that, and how that's kind of bull because mostly it's just atmospheric changes in temperature. But what I found quite interesting this week was an article in Scientific American talking about geoengineering in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
In the Bay Area. Geoengineering test quietly launches salt crystals into atmosphere.
Cool.
Right? That means that it's actually happening.
Oh, so
Okay, it's not just a conspiracy theory.
Stealth report here, huh?
This is Scientific American. Yeah, it's quietly launches. They say a solar geoengineering experiment in San Francisco could lead to brighter clouds that reflect sunlight. Brighter clouds that reflect sunlight.
Mm-hmm.
As they say, what could go wrong?
It's a little scary, huh?
The Carrizo looked. It reminded me when I went to Utah.
Yeah.
I could see chemtrails, a checkerboard in the sky. There's so many.
Uh-huh.
And then when I was week, I saw the same thing. It was crisscrossing the sky. These long, 10, 15, 20-mile long chemtrails.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Well, how many of those are these experiments? From what I can see, the experiments that they're talking about here are specifically over the Bay Area. So you should see them where you are in San Francisco there, Bobby, I would think. And they would consist of having more reflective clouds. So you should be able to tell by the way in which the clouds look to give this. And it doesn't sound like it's chemtrails from planes. It sounds like more it's a cloud cover that they're throwing salt into. And that's it. The idea is that you have these specially built sprayers that shoot trillions of sea salt particles into the sky. Mm-hmm. And why? To increase the density of the marine clouds, the reflective capacity. And apparently it's taking place atop the USS Hornet Sea Air and Space Museum in Alameda. And it will run it through the end of May, according to a weather modification form that the team filed with federal regulators. Why are they doing this? Well, the ostensible reason is that there are yearly temperature records that are just over the top, and that there's growing interest in solar radiation and modification from Silicon Valley funders and some environmental groups. This experiment follows the termination of a Harvard experiment last month where they planned to inject reflective aerosols into the stratosphere near Sweden, but that had to be canceled because of opposition from indigenous groups in Sweden. Cloud brightening could alter the weather patterns, and it might do something that is unexpected.
Right.
And it's not addressing the main cause of climate change, which is still considered to be the use of fossil fuels. What would happen if, say, you were doing these cloud seeding and it was getting cooler, and then suddenly you lose your budget for your cloud seeding project, and that could cause a catastrophic spike in global temperatures if the geoengineering activities were discontinued. Then greenhouse gases would go up, and then voila, another Venus.
Now, does something
No.
about this article strike you as cray-cray?
Ooh.
No,
Really?
no, I think it's mostly real. I think it doesn't get into what you and Bobby were referring to as chemtrails. That's
I was not referring to chemtrails today.
why.
all.
Why do you consider this Scientific American article on geoengineering to be cray-cray, Mrs. Future?
Well, for one thing, it's very difficult for me to tell if this is disclosing something that already happened or if it is telling us that there's a secret that has to be revealed. And I can't really tell from this article whether it's a news report or alarmist, and I'm not really sure how concerned we're supposed to be.
Well, I think the last paragraph sums it up for the writer, where he says, quote, "History has shown us that when we insert ourselves into modification of nature, there are always very serious unintended consequences."
Okay, so the writer is very concerned about this program.
Yeah.
The main point of this article is that this program has been going on.
And will
It
be
hasn't
going
been
on
the
through
radar.
May, all through May as
Is
well.
happening through May and is now, with this article, entering a period of public awareness.
Starting to, yes. There's still a lot of secrecy around it. The New York Times is one of the few newspapers that were granted exclusive access to covering the initial firing of the spray cannons.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's a contentious issue. And it's going to get a lot of critics going, and they want to not have to deal with that in order to try this experiment.
Well, especially in some place like San Francisco, where
Yeah.
in terms of the environmental concerns of the Bay Area population,
Yes.
we probably have a few million people and a few 10 million opinions about it.
Yeah, and it's unlikely to get approved if they weren't being secretive about it.
Yeah, if they're using a deliberative decision-making process, then basically what our California Assembly likes to do is just have secret meetings and approve the money and pay the people who go to the secret meetings. And then if the public finds out, figure out somebody to blame if something goes wrong. But instead, what we're looking at here is some kind of journalist trying to say, well, the cat's out of the bag. It's happening in Alameda. And if we find out who's doing it, there might be an uproar. That's kind of what this article's saying.
Well, they're saying who does it. The University of Washington is involved. Silver Lining, a geoengineering research advocacy group, is involved. However, they did decline interview requests.
Right.
And the mayor of Alameda declined interview requests.
Right. So
Yeah.
all of these people are getting paid by some backdoor mechanism, and they don't have to tell any public scrutinist what the story is.
No, because there's too much contention. It'll never happen.
Yeah, salting the clouds. I
Yeah.
mean, who wants salt in the clouds, right?
Direct sunshine is what I want.
You want more sunshine, less clouds over San Francisco, right? Yeah. However, that's not supposed to be so good for the global temperature, though. You know, you're supposed to have more reflection. Oh, man. Anyway, it's a crazy story. But I thought it was interesting that it was in Scientific American. It was republished by Scientific American from E&E News, which is owned by Politico. Okay. And E&E News usually provides energy and environmental information. So I thought that was interesting. And the editor's note on this was that their partners at ClimateWire have edited this article after posting to clarify that neither Sushi Talati, one of the interviewers they did, nor the Alliance for Just Deliberation on Solar Geoengineering is involved in describing this project.
So this is what I'm saying. Like, it's really hard to know who is putting this information out and whether they're pro or anti or whether they're just trying to start some memes so that they can control some future narrative.
Well, let's see here. Let's see.
Seems really hazy to me.
Suchi Totality, the executive director of the Alliance for Just Deliberation on Solar Engineering, says, quote, "Since this experiment was kept under wraps until the test started, we are eager to see how public engagement is being planned and who will be involved." Eager, huh?
Yeah, so this means this is like a polite way of saying they tried to pull this one off and we found out about it and we're waiting to see what they're going to tell us now that the public is aware of it.
Well, yeah. Look, if you do this experiment and you get good results, then you can have a nice rebuttal to people who want to stop you.
Does it remind you of that Star Trek episode of the binaries where, well, how come you didn't just ask us? Because you might have said no.
That's right. That's right. Well, people will definitely say no about geoengineering. Are you kidding?
Well, that's why we need a new process. And I want to just do hats off to Jim Ruff here. Instead of choice making and closed room doors with decision makers, we need choice creation so that we, the people, are part of the conversation.
And not just
for that.
I think the issue is that the squeakiest wheel ends up stopping the whole machine. That's what they're worried about.
And so instead, they're going to have the sneakiest wheel controlling the whole outcome.
Yeah, it's kind of a national security thing, you know.
Who wins, squeak or sneak?
Or should I say planetary health? I think you can make a case either way, and the reality is we need a better decision-making process.
Yeah. Well, I know that I have become a blind optimist because I've just had my head spun so many times. I just don't know who to believe anymore. But I really do feel intuitively that the future is so bright. We got to wear shades and we've got to get through these next few years of chaos and silos of misinformation and some people putting 2 feet forward and some people putting 10 feet back, you know.
Yeah, something else.
The sum effort of human creativity for the future which is arriving is on the whole amazing. It's beyond anything that we could have planned. And I'm really looking forward to it.
All right, me too. One of the big problems that NASA's been dealing with lately is budget cuts. And one of the big things that it looks like is going to be cut is their plans to retrieve the Mars samples that the Perseverance rover.
How much did they want to spend on
Perseverance
collecting that bag of rocks?
Well, the figure is that the Perseverance rover has gone along and collected a bunch of rocks and made little rock piles that should be sent back to Earth for analysis.
Yeah, that was
Right?
always the
Kinda makes
plan,
sense.
right?
But then again, how do you get them back to the Earth? Do you send a rocket down and pick up their little rock piles and like the robot, put them in this rocket and take them back to Earth?
That's the big question.
You know, how do you do it?
I
How
mean,
do you
we
do it?
barely can get rockets off of Earth. How are we supposed to get them off of Mars?
Yeah, NASA figures that they can build rockets that can basically do this kind of rock delivery system. But to deliver a few rocks from Mars would cost us, the taxpayers, about $11 billion.
Oh, and that's a lot of jobs for
and $11 billion.
one little robot to collect rocks on Mars.
Yeah, rock collector. And send it back to Earth, but not
I guess
before.
$11 billion for a rock collector and a rocket from Mars
that's part of
back
the rock
to
collector.
Earth
It's
is probably normal.
Yeah.
That's about how much they like to spend.
But we wouldn't get any until 2040.
So what is it? It's like $500 million a year between now and then.
Something like that. 2040, $11 billion.
And is that money
Mars,
going to people or is it going to robots?
Well, whatever it is, it's been
getting that
canceled.
money?
It's been pretty much canceled.
Oh, okay.
All right, the
who's
original
getting
design.
That money is no longer the rock recovery project.
No, so NASA is saying, putting it out to the public. How should we get the rocks back more cheaply?
I say ask Elon.
Yeah? Well,
Yeah.
You agree, Bobby?
He should have a base up there by that time, by 2040.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
And-
saying he's going to get out of here before 2030. He's going to get the big BFRs. The starships are going to be on their way.
Well,
Every 2 years
keep in
Mars
mind-
cycle, he's going to try and get a new mission off.
Keep in mind, Elon said we'd have robo-taxis by 2020 also. So
Well,
his
if
timeline
the
here.
world wanted robo-taxis, we'd have them. But there's a lot of competition. That's a very disruptive thing to do. When the world figures out that they can benefit from robo-taxis, we know the technology is just about there.
But I would agree with you. I think that Elon could probably get them back before 2040.
And he could probably spend however many billions of dollars more efficiently.
Yeah. So you say that NASA should give Elon some money to just collect the rocks and send them back.
Well, they should at least get a
Starship.
request for proposal from him.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess SpaceX is in a good position to do a FedEx delivery system from Mars.
And NASA is really a good customer.
They'll pay.
Yeah, they're a good person to get a contract from. At least you hope so, although Congress can cancel their budget anytime. So it's probably better than just giving them the money directly and letting them smoke it away.
Yeah, well, $11 billion, safely land and collect the samples, launch them back here, only 33 million mile ride back to Earth, deliver them here. Yeah, they need to think outside of the box. And I guess SpaceX is thinking outside of the box there.
Yeah. Well, partnerships. It's all about the private-public partnership. We know that the public has no trouble making money and giving it to whoever they want. And we know that the private enterprises have to do things within budget to get more money. Otherwise, they lose their credibility. That government doesn't have that problem. They just make more money.
Yeah.
They lose credibility all the time. And they're like, yeah, that's part of doing business. We'll just ask for more money.
Yeah, well, it looks like less budget is here, so that probably makes the most sense. The only other possibility is to hire some aliens to bring it back from one of the spaceships, or maybe the super secret space program with their anti-gravity machines. They could get it for us.
What currency are they using?
Not tell us, or make it agree not to say that they did it.
Do they need some Abundicon? Like how are we supposed to pay the aliens?
Don't
They
even go
need our
there.
money.
The aliens, forget it. That was a joke. I'm talking about
I thought you
the
were
deep
serious.
space program, the super secret space program that we supposedly have since 1950s because of gravity research going black and has been black ever since.
Who told you about the secret space program?
Oh, everybody's told me about it.
Everybody?
Remember Laura Eisenhower? She was a
yeah.
big member of that whole thing. We saw her at the New Living Expo. She'll probably be there next week.
Right. Oh, yeah. So New Living Expo next week. Danny Sheehan.
Danny Sheehan is talking about it. He's been talking about it. He personally saw information on crash retrieval.
There's a lot of updates from Danny about what's going on with getting Congress to disclose the alien information that they have.
That's right. Yeah.
And that'll be
And
a good reason to
disclosure.
go to the New Living Expo next week.
Yeah. And the whole idea of moving the whole alien question from an issue of national security and dealing with military and intelligence to moving it into the academic sector where people can actually communicate and understand things a little bit more in depth rather than keeping it under wraps. Though I understand the military has been trying to reverse engineer, if you listen to Bob Lazar and all that, but it's still kept under wraps. And as a result, it moves at a speed that we don't know about.
Yeah. Just a little plug for the New Living Expo. It is April 19th to the 21st, and it is going to be at the Marin Center in San Rafael again. So if you're interested in the usual suspects who are telling you about the way to meet the aliens and the way to ascend and the way to have perfect health and create your light body, all that stuff, New Living Expo next week.
Right. Yeah.
Are you going to be there? Are you going to be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
We don't know yet.
We're playing it by ear. We don't know.
This is some of the latest exoplanet sonification data from the James Webb Telescope. There's some amazing imagery that'll go with this, or on our visual show, you'll be able to see that. But here, this is a scan of data sonified of a birthing sector of the galaxy where the stars are being born. And the sounds you hear are each one a sound of a star. And it's scanning a large photograph of the sky going from left to right. And you should, if you're listening on stereo, you should be able to hear and each of those sounds is a separate star. It's the James Webb Telescope of the Carina Nebula. This is the Southern Ring Nebula, left to right. The strings are stars.
Yeah, the things that sound like somebody's plucking on a lute.
Yeah. What it's trying to do is looking
Bright
at
stars.
infrared light, and now this is one of a near infrared light, looking at the Southern Ring Nebula. And it looks a little like the red spot on Jupiter, for your visualies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The deep and thunderous noise
Okay.
is the space fog.
Now, this is data. When you hear the drip of water like that, that's when it detects water in the atmosphere of an exoplanet called WASP-96. Those are different chemicals that are discovering in the atmosphere by the sound, wavelengths of light.
There
So
you go.
that's,
Space sonification.
Yes, a new way of looking at data through the James Webb Telescope at exoplanets and nebulas and in space.
I love hearing space sonification.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've been doing some nice work with it because you could assign any sound you like to the various things that are being measured. In the case of what we've just been listening to, some of the pitches are associated with colors. And the colors, of course, are different frequencies of light that are being interpreted by the infrared telescope spectrum analysis. And of course, some of the other sounds, when it sounded like a string being plucked, that was a record of how bright something was. So the luminosity of the stars
loudness,
is being
loudness,
presented as loudness.
Yeah. Well, the James Webb Telescope has discovered the cause of the most powerful cosmic explosion since the Big Bang.
Oh.
Okay, there was an explosion nicknamed the Boat, which stands for brightest of all time. It was a gamma ray burster. Now, gamma ray bursters are nasty little things, GRBs. They can spit photons at Earth with more energy than the Large Hadron Collider can do. A gamma ray burster, if it hits a planet directly, can literally turn it into a cinder.
Wow.
Yeah, from across the galaxy. It's very, very powerful stuff. We've been looking at one that was detected by our orbiting telescopes and on the ground last October 9th, 22, from 2.4 billion light years away in the constellation Sagitta. Now a team of scientists have tracked its origins to a gigantic supernova. Like, how did it happen? What?
Where was that
Yeah.
gamma ray burst from again?
It was from the constellation Sagitta, Sagitta, 2.4 billion light years away. Thank goodness it's a long ways away. And a giant supernova that came after the collapse of a giant star.
And we just happened to catch it because this thing doesn't last forever in space, right? It's kind of
No.
like a flash.
Relatively quickly, yes. But there's some new mystery that's come out of it. We've always thought that, well, supernovas are where we get heavy elements from. Like anything heavier than iron cannot be formed from the pressures on Earth, that we need something like the pressures that exist inside stars blowing up in order to create anything heavier than iron, like platinum and gold and lead. And all these elements came from supernova explosions.
Trying to
But-
force those molecules together, huh?
Yeah. So naturally, the scientists were looking at this biggest of all time explosion. They wanted to see, well, what kind of heavy elements were spinning out of that, like platinum and gold. But when they were looking at it, nothing. No evidence of anything like platinum or gold or lead.
I see.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of energy, but no chemistry signatures?
Yeah, the gamma ray burster was generated by the collapse of a massive star like supernovas. They were looking for these heaviest elements that are formed there. They wanted to watch them form to see how heavy elements are formed in a supernova. But they did not see any signatures of any elements, suggesting that these super energetic gamma ray bursters don't produce any elements. And why? Because they just somehow burn them all up really fast, and they're not.
Maybe their theory
they're-
of formation is wrong. Maybe
Yeah,
the way they manifest has more to do with harmony than it has to do with explosive forces.
The gamma ray bursters don't produce heavy elements. It's another piece of the mystery about our continuing attempt to understand how heavy elements are formed. Especially
in the
in
memorable
supernova.
words of our friend Paul Gautel,
Yeah.
who really knows?
Who really does know?
All right. Well, we got about a minute till we're heading for a break.
Okay. Oh, since we're talking about that, I'm going to just say that we've also seen a dead star come back to life.
Oh.
Scientists were astounded to witness a dead neutron star, which is powerful magnetic fields around it, suddenly spring back to life, which hasn't been seen before. They're called magnastars.
That's
Came
awesome.
back from the dead, 8,000 light years away.
Wow.
Yeah. And we will have all these stories and more at drfutureshow.com/links. You can check them out in more detail. But these are some of the things that
After
caught
the
our
live
eye
show,
for this week.
There's still evidence available.
Extreme dead star springing to life.
All right.
Unexpectedly.
And we'll be back after some news, some local and
You'll be talking to
national
Dave
news.
Welch.
And Dave Welch. Future Now. Here you go.
Okay, welcome back to Future Now with Mrs. Future and myself and Bobby Wilder in San Francisco. Bobby, you there?
Yeah.
All right, good,
Yeah.
good deal on this beautiful sunny day in the Bay Area. And just a little bit further south from us, we have David Welch on the line. David, welcome to the show.
AKA Nordic Dave.
Nordic Dave, who you guys may have heard from other shows on Santa Cruz Voice. I believe you're doing a show all about China with Michael Olson.
Second to your show, of course. It's one of the most popular shows on the station. China Now with Thursdays from 3 to 5. Yep, China Now. We talk about how China is impacting the United States and the global economy and just the overall, global ecosystem. And it's fascinating. There's so much news about China that's just not reported in the United States that have a direct bearing on our way of life.
Fascinating, Dave. Well, I definitely want to get a little bit into that with you after your big story today. For those who don't know, Dave, he's a private pilot, and he flew his own plane to see the eclipse last week. We wanted to hear a little bit, some of the juicy details of that. How did that come across? Did you decide in advance you were going to do this? And if so, take a lot of prep or what?
I have to wind the clock back a ways. So it started when I was about 7 years old.
7, okay.
And I'm a planner.
Yeah, I guess
I'll
so.
say.
Hey, you're thinking of the
really.
2024 eclipse and across the U.S.,
Yeah,
And-
so I'm up in northern Minnesota. There's a partial eclipse, and so all the kids in the grade school are outside, and we're making pinhole cameras, watching the moon go over the sun. Of course, for us, it's only part way because it was a partial eclipse. And that fascinated me, and I thought, wow, I'd like to see a total eclipse sometime. And so I ran to the library. We had a library in our school.
Yeah.
And I ran to the library, and I got it all, and it said the next total eclipse of the sun in the United States was going to be 2017 up in Oregon.
Oh.
I'm like 7 in northern Minnesota, and it's like,
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm not going to make that.
Yeah.
Probably just
That's
too far
kind of
away.
how people feel now about the next one in 2045. It's like it's half a lifetime away.
Jeez.
Can't
Isn't
worry
it though?
about that. We'll have to travel to Africa or something.
Yeah,
So 2017, and you were 9 years old back in the 80s or something?
yeah, it was early, back in the 70s.
70s, okay.
Early 70s, yeah. So I'm looking at, there's 2024, there's one that cuts through the Midwest through Ohio. I said, I can get to Ohio, probably as an adult.
From Minneapolis, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I fulfilled a promise to my 7-year-old self that I was going to go see a total eclipse in 2024. I
Ah.
just saw it in Texas instead of Ohio.
That is so cool, Dave. I love that story.
So you had a chance to plan for this a little
Yeah,
bit.
what kind of things went into the plan
Yeah. I mean,
besides just putting it on your calendar?
when did you decide to fly?
Well, I thought everything was super expensive to fly to anywhere in the zone of totality. Hotels were crazy expensive. Just
Yeah.
everything was overpriced.
Sure,
Oh,
yeah, I remember that.
People really
People were
decided
cashing
to
in on it.
cash in on this one.
Yeah.
Right.
Huge, right?
Yeah.
So I thought, you know what? I can fly my own plane. And I like flying it across the United States. And those multi-segment cross-country trips are a lot of fun. You meet tons of people. I equate it to, not everybody's going to have this frame of reference, but I equate it to driving across the country in the 60s or the 70s.
Oh,
Oh, how cool. So
You know,
you've
where
done
you
this
remember
before,
you had
huh?
a map and you had to the car probably needed to be serviced along the way. And,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
had to just do a lot more planning.
Yeah, I did a 70s cross country.
I think
totally
it might
got
be akin to now people with electric vehicles.
We did a cross country last year too. Yeah, electric
Turned off the
vehicles, right? You had to
GPS,
stop. Yeah. Well, So you have to plan, I guess, and when you're flying private, you have to think about all the little airports that might be available to you and gas.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the good part. I didn't realize this until I got my license. I didn't really internalize it.
Yeah.
There are 3,500 airports in the United States.
3,500.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, and we tend to think about SFO and SJC and Monterey, KMRY, and
Yeah.
The big
those
commercial
big
ones.
airports. But my goodness, there are lots and lots of airports, and a lot of them are right up next to where you want to go, which is really cool.
Do they tell you what services they have at these little airports? Like if they have rental
They do.
cars or?
So there's actually a national index
Uh-huh.
that's maintained by a couple of different services, and also including the FAA. Where they've got a directory of all the airports, the services are offered, the fuel that's offered, the costs and fees for flying in and tying down. All of that is published, so you can make then decisions. And sometimes, one airport's a lot cheaper than another, and it's close by, and so
Yeah.
that's kind of part of the trip planning.
No, were they really busy because of the eclipse as well? With a lot of private pilots trying to do this?
Yes. There's a service called FlightAware.com, and it actually shows all the traffic in the United States. You can track specific airplanes by their tail number. That number you see on the back, which is like N1234.
Yeah.
Even the airliners have an N number. It's just printed pretty small.
So they kind of know
but you
where
can
you
actually-
are in real time, right?
Yeah. And so they published a picture of all of the planes in the air during the eclipse.
Yeah.
I think,
And-
did Scott Manley play that in his
Scott
show?
Manley, I think, had a
We
clip.
saw
Yeah, that would look phenomenal.
the eclipse map of the United States with sort of a dot, a moving gauge of all of the planes that went up during the eclipse. It was quite amazing to see the whole country and all the flights and how the outline of Totality was outlined by flights.
By airplanes, exactly. It was so funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is future. Yeah, it was surprising how many planes were in the air. So I flew down. So my flight path here is I flew from Watsonville to Paso Robles,
Yeah.
and then we had lunch, and then Paso Robles over to Kingman, Arizona, where we spent the night.
Kingman.
And Kingman, by the way, used to be a B-17 target shooting base.
Yeah.
So they would train the waist and tail gunners from the B-17s that they tow targets, and these guys would learn how to shoot moving targets. So it was actually an aerial gunnery school
Wow.
Fascinating.
for the Second World War.
So they still have a good runway then, I assume.
They do. It's all a big old runway. It's great.
Wow.
And they got the original World War II control tower there that's used for ceremonies and things because it's a CTAF airport.
You
which,
could
like
do a whole
Watsonville,
little
where-
guidebook, Dave.
That's hilarious.
Just a little subchapter on each place you landed. That's cool.
So Kingman,
It's
huh?
fun,
Yeah.
From there, we went on and got gas in Winslow, Arizona.
Winslow.
And believe me, the only thing Winslow, Arizona has as claim to fame is that Eagles song.
Yeah, that's it. I was right. Yeah. Well, they certainly got a lot of fame from that. Wow. So they've got an airport, I guess. So.
Statue of a person standing on the corner of Winslow, Arizona, and on one of the intersections.
Such a fine sight
So
to
you-
see.
Yeah, and you were standing.
Exactly.
So was the airport a fine sight to see there too?
No, it was very desolate, kind of a postage stamp in the middle of nowhere. No services around, just self-service fuel tanks, and that's all I needed was gas.
Right.
Was there a corner in Winslow, Arizona?
There is. It's got a bronze statue on it of the person standing on the corner.
Oh, really? And was it a girl, my
I'm serious.
lord?
I said that was like that was the most popular. That was the biggest thing that ever happened to that town. That was it.
Well, at least they have a statue.
So did anyone
Yeah.
slow down to take a look at you?
Yeah. I didn't go into town this time.
Oh,
I just gassed up at the airport and got out of there.
So
Yeah,
are
on my
these
way.
all these airports? Are they have real asphalt for their runways?
Yeah, they do. In fact, it's all graded as well. So you've got poor, fair, or good. The runways are graded according to their
and
quality.
so poor means potholes everywhere, and you'll probably dump your plane, and good means grass, or what?
Well, kind of not far from the truth. Fair is that it probably has a few cracks in it. Probably needs to be sealed. And then good is there's no rocks peeling up from it or anything. And and then there's good, which is like the best it gets is good.
Yeah.
That can be anywhere from something that's recently sealed to a brand new runway.
And what's your flight limit? Can you go 600 miles or further?
Tank
or?
of gas? How far do you get on a tank of gas?
Yeah, so it depends if I want to go for speed or endurance. So I can kind of crank back the power to 60% or 55%, and I can go for almost 7 hours.
Wow. What speed are you traveling at that cruising?
Well, for me, usually what I'm doing is I usually have about 4.5 hours of gas, and I'm usually flying at about 150, 160 miles an hour.
Okay, so that was
when
a
I'm
pretty
down
good
low.
guess, huh? 600 is
Yeah, it
about
was very
right.
good. But your intuitive pulse on everything is yours right on.
Yeah, it's gotten me this far.
That's why you're the future, you know.
That's right.
How much do the winds affect your gas mileage?
Oh, quite a bit. When we were going east to Texas, we actually had 20 to 30 mile an hour tailwinds.
Ooh,
So,
wow, how
if I was
Texan.
cruising at 100, so I was cruising at 150. I was actually doing 180
Wow.
Cool.
ground speed.
You got some extra.
And I've got turbochargers. So for every 1,000 feet you rise, you lose 3% of your engine power.
Oh.
Because you guys are like on a mountaintop and you're hiking and you start huffing and puffing. 'cause the
Yeah,
air's thin.
less air.
Sure.
Less air, and the engine has less air as it goes up also. Unless you have a turbo, then you're packing it with air and you're making it think it's at sea level, so you're getting full power.
So that's how turbo works. It compresses the air to normal atmospheric pressure.
Exactly. And the engine just thinks it's on a regular day pulling out of Watsonville, even though it's at 17,000 feet.
Oh. Does it take much energy to run a turbo system like that? I mean,
No, it's harvesting the wasted energy of the exhaust. So,
Oh, it is. Wow.
yeah, for an aircraft, it's just incredibly efficient. In fact, I can be in no wind, clear wind, I can do about 180 miles an hour in that aircraft. And if I have a tailwind that's like 20, 30, 40 miles an hour, I'm hauling. In fact, I had a flight from Bend, Oregon back here, and normally that's a 3.5 hour flight. And it took me an hour and 20 minutes.
Because of the wind.
Because I had
Wow.
a 100 mile an hour tailwind.
Holy
Wow,
moly.
what
Wow.
a range.
And conversely, it would slow you down that much and would use more gas to go against such a wind, huh?
Oh, yeah, in which case I would just park. I wouldn't even.
You wouldn't even try it,
Don't
huh?
even bother, huh?
I'd wait till the next
It's a waste
morning,
of
yeah.
gas.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cheaper to spend the night somewhere.
Okay, so
exactly.
after wind's low, what was your next stop?
We finished our trek through Arizona and then into New Mexico.
Stop in the Enchanted Desert somewhere.
No, we kind of flew through. It's very pretty. Then we landed because the gas is so much cheaper in West Texas.
Oh, it is. Oh, I guess when you cross over to
you're
New
flying
Mexico
over
to Texas.
Oil fields forever, and the gas is like $1.80 a gallon less than it is here in California
Amazing.
Wow.
for aviation fuel. It's full service. It's just great. I mean, it's so cheap. In fact, car gas was $2.95 to $3.35 a gallon was the most expensive we found.
In Texas?
Yeah.
And aviation fuel, now, for the uninitiated, is that a higher octane gas than car fuel?
Yeah, it's actually a pure gasoline. It doesn't have all these crazy aromatics that car gas does. 'Cause car gas smells awful, and it goes bad in about 6 months. It turns to varnish.
Yeah.
Aviation fuel is actually pure gas, and it uses a small amount of lead to boost up the octane to 100. So you can store it for 3-4 years, and it's still good.
Huh.
It never really decays.
I guess they add all those aromatics just so people don't accidentally asphyxiate themselves.
Yeah, pretty close. But it's actually for automotive gas, it's to stretch the octane rating without using lead.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And
That's
some of those
interesting,
chemicals
yeah.
they put in are just really hazardous to people's health.
Has lead in it. Does that mean that people with old cars use aviation fuel to run them?
Some do. You're not supposed to.
You're not supposed to.
And their airports try to be pretty strict about watching people take gas off field. But yeah, if you've got like a 11-to-1 compression muscle car, like an LS6 Chevelle from the 60s or something, man, it would love that gas.
Okay, so Texas. Now, no, you're not going to sleep in your plane, right? You're going to find a place to camp or to.
Generally, we just hotel it. It's surprising. What part we'll do is we're coming up to an area like coming back, for example, we decided we're going to stop in Phoenix area. And so I came down to a lower altitude. We got on the cell phone.
Yeah.
And then she started going on like Priceline and stuff and looking for hotels. And originally I was going to go to Glendale or Goodyear. And Goodyear's, by the way, is where they park the Goodyear blimp. It's that airport. That's why they call it Goodyear.
Oh, interesting.
But then I looked on the other side of Phoenix, on the eastern side of Phoenix. All the hotels in Chandler were really cheap. So we decided to land in Chandler.
There you go.
What's the bandwidth situation when you're flying? Can you pick up local Wi-Fi or what?
Yeah, so generally I get, depending on the altitude, when I'm a little higher up, maybe like 6,000 feet above ground, I'm probably getting the older system like Edge. Sometimes I get 3G. Come down a little bit more, I'll get LTE.
I've never
and come
heard
down
of
a little further
Edge.
and I'll get
What is
5G.
Edge?
Well, that's an older standard for Wi-Fi.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
really
2G.
And 5G is the worst, I
literally
guess. You have to
below
be.
my radar.
Yeah. Well, we almost have to fly below radar to get good 5G.
Right, right. So what is the height range when you're flying to get 5G? You got to be above 400 feet and below 1,000 or what?
Yeah, probably like around like maybe 4,000 feet above the ground. We can get it.
Oh,
You know.
that's the upper limit? 4,000?
Now, it depends where the towers are placed. Like sometimes we're flying along, especially in like Southern California in the high desert.
Yeah.
They'll put the cell towers on the top of the highest mountain peaks.
Yeah.
Just so they get stretch over a broad area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in that case, we can get the cell service up higher. Really just kind of depends where we find the towers.
Yeah. So the towers are, I guess it depends on whether or not they're aiming for the sky as well. Aren't they kind of cone shaped in their broadcast radius?
They are. They're kind of intended more for the ground, but you do get pretty good cell coverage. We had cell coverage at 11,500 flying out. We'd spot it. We'd go for half an hour without cell, and then we'd have 10 minutes of cell. Look something up real quick.
Yeah.
That's
on the trip.
interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Now, what's the height that you're normally flying at? Like, what's the zone? What's the comfy zone?
Oh, yeah. So if I'm doing a local flight, like to Monterey or Salinas or Paso Robles or something, or just over the hill to Hollister or something like that,
Yeah.
I'll fly like maybe 3,000, 3,500.
Right.
I generally keep it kind of low. It burns a lot more gas to climb than
Yeah.
it does to cruise.
Uh-huh.
But the higher you climb, the thinner the air and the more efficiency I can get. So it becomes a
game.
distance
Sure.
game, yeah, in height.
Right.
Yeah.
Is
If I'm
it worth
going to-
climbing?
Is the climb worth it? That's what it comes down to, yeah. And we've got software tools now that when you do the trip planning, when you can do some of the what-ifing, cruising at this altitude versus this altitude, because you look at the winds also. Are the winds favorable? Like I might down low, I might have a headwind, and if I go up high, I might have a tailwind. So in which case, it's worth the extra gas to go up higher.
Yeah, that's Greg. You just asked a question, which I've been wondering about myself. Do you have Starlink available from your plan?
You can. I don't subscribe to it because it's like just crazy expensive.
Yeah, it's like $150 a month or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so for me, I just dip down. I can get cell service if I wait a little bit. But some people do. You see it a lot in the jets. So a lot of people have got Gulfstreams or Cessna CJs or something like that. They oftentimes have the satellite service.
Right, or the passenger liners have it too. Yeah, the
Yeah.
plane. Yeah, okay, well, it's good to know. Back to the eclipse. Did you scope out a place in advance where you wanted to be for the eclipse?
Or did you just
Or did you
use
use-
the weather report that morning?
Oh no, I had a place staked out. So I had a buddy of mine in Texas. He's got one of the top Cessna mechanics in the country. Real sharp guy. And so I stayed over in Crescent, Texas. And I was able to park my plane in his hangar, which was great. So I got there the night before. He catered the whole thing. It was great. We had this. Oh, by the way, the food in Texas is unbelievable, especially the meat.
Oh, yeah.
man.
Barbecue special, huh?
Oh, it's famous,
It
right?
was unbelievable. Yeah, we
Real
had,
close to the cows.
Oh, you're very close to the cows. I could still have the aftertaste of some of this food I had when I was there. It's just I could just feel the texture in my mouth and the flavor. It was just that powerfully good
Wow.
and clean. Yeah, which is great. Well, went to one place Del Norte. This place is in Godley, Texas, next to where we were in Crescent and Granbury. It had the most unreal tacos I ever had in my life.
Oh, yeah.
They had these
What
beef
made
brisket
'em?
tacos.
Beef brisket. Oh, so the beef was its own whole gourmet school, huh?
Exactly. It was great. Amy, I think, had the chicken tacos that were just unbelievable. The meat is just, right, I tell you, if you're carnivorous, Texas is your place.
Sure. Yeah, they make no bones about it.
So was the weather good
yeah,
for the
they-
eclipse where you were? Because I heard there's a lot of clouds across
Well,
Texas.
we were concerned because the forecasts were 55 to 60% overcast.
Yeah.
And to me, if I didn't get a chance to actually see the corona of the sun, I'd been okay with that. I just wanted to watch it get dark. Part of the adventure of it. You just got to roll with what nature gives you.
Hey, eclipses
And you
are
learn
that
that
way.
when you're flying, too.
Yeah.
Small planes, you go with what nature gives you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we were fortunate, though, because the area we were just slightly west of Fort Worth, it was really clear. We had a couple of wispy clouds go by during the event, but they were seconds, they were gone.
Wow. So did you have your eclipse glasses or what?
Yeah, I had the eclipse glasses. I made my pinhole camera like I did when
Oh,
I was
yeah?
7. And all these adults, it's funny, everybody I'm with, adults. I'm already thinking of myself like I was a kid. I transported myself back in time. But all the other grown-ups who were there, they had forgotten about pinhole cameras. It's like, oh, I remember that when I was in school. And so everybody was huddled around a couple of pinhole cameras I made. And that was fun. Yeah, I went into a local CVS and I asked them, can I take a couple of pieces of paper? And so they gave me a couple pieces of paper out of their printer, and I was able to take a toothpick and poke a little hole in one of them. And
that's it, right? That's all you need.
Super high tech.
Yeah, it worked great. And then I had regular glasses as well to see it.
Well, during the actual total, you don't need to wear anything, right? Just for a few
No, you
minutes.
don't. You could look straight at it because you're just seeing the corona, the light coming out, bending around the moon.
Yeah.
And I thought it would get darker than it was actually. I mean, it got dark, okay, but it wasn't like it was total night.
No.
It was more like the darkest rain clouds you've ever seen in your life blocking the sun.
Right.
Where it's just really dim outside.
How about the sounds? Were there more crickets that came out?
Well, I was just going to get to that because that was the funny part. Everybody got a laugh out of this. As we went into Totality,
Yeah.
the airport security lights came on where we were standing, and the airport beacon came on, and we started hearing crickets. And then a bat flew across the runway.
Oh,
Whoa.
So Mother Nature thought, okay, man, it's nighttime. it's deep dusk.
yeah, they adapt fast. Man, did the stars come out?
Yeah. We couldn't see a lot of stars because it was dark, but it wasn't dark. So I think we saw Jupiter, some of the big planets.
Yeah, yeah. How about the temperature?
Temperature was great. Temperature was in the 60s.
Did it drop during the full eclipse very much? Was it discernible?
It was slightly discernible. It wasn't a lot, mostly because I think if it were like 102, like a real Texas day, it would have been real discernible.
Yeah.
But I think being in the middle 60s, it was, and you could feel it cooling a little, but not a lot.
Yeah. Okay, we got to go to a commercial break.
Can you stay for the rest of the show?
Sure.
Great.
All
All
right.
right. We're just
Talking to Dave Welch on his journey to the eclipse in Texas last week. We'll be right back.
The votes are in. Chef Ben here from Back 9 Grill and Bar at the Easy Off Past Tempo exit. We are so proud of our food and our service and your votes. Back 9 has been voted Santa Cruz County's best burger and best happy hour in the good times. You've heard me talking about our house ground burgers. It's time for you to come and try one so you can taste the juicy difference. And what makes our happy hour the best? You have to come and experience it yourself. See you at the 9.
Do you have a car sitting around you want to get rid of? Donate your car and help veterans and their families. Yes, one fast call to the Veteran Car Donation Program and we'll come and remove your car for free. You can donate most cars, trucks, or SUVs in most conditions. The proceeds raised goes to help active military, veterans, and their families. And you get a tax deduction. Operators are standing by. Here's the number.
800-640-9509. Again, that's 800-640-9509. When you need help managing your estate, call on the Angel.
Hello, I am attorney Angel Hess, and I am ready to help. Whether you need a will or a trust, a guardianship or a conservatorship, or if you are managing the financial affairs of a loved one, I will help you with over 7 years' experience working in estate planning and probate fields.
When you need help, call on the Angel, attorney Angel L. Hess at santacruzlegal.net.
For ag and industrial real estate, call Chuck Allen. Chuck Allen is a lifelong resident of the Pajaro Valley, a friend of everybody, and has closed so many real estate transactions, the Wall Street Journal and Keller Williams both list him as one of the nation's top producers. So for ag and industrial real estate, call the top realtor, Chuck Allen, at chuckallenproperties.com. chuckallenproperties.com.
All right, we are back with Dave Welch. Man, what a journey, Dave. How long did this whole trip to Texas and back by private plane take you?
Oh, my arms got really tired at Paso Robles.
Paso Robles. What?
I was flapping. It was
yeah, okay.
I generally fly in about 4-hour legs, 3.5 to 4 hour legs. At that point, I kind of want to get out and stretch my legs a bit. So, I plot it out in chunks like that. But it takes about 8 hours to get to Fort Worth from here.
8 hours? That's not so bad.
It's interesting. When you're flying a Cessna, like a 182, like Skylane 182, like I've got, it's a fairly roomy plane. And it carries a lot of weight. I can carry full fuel plus 625 pounds.
All right.
So I can carry 4
family
people.
car.
Yeah, it is.
So it was you and Amy and your stuff?
Our stuff, yeah, exactly.
Wow.
It's a roomy plane. It's comfortable to shift around in your seat, and I've got really nice seats. They're very comfortable. They go up and down and tilt back, and so you can kind of change positions while you're flying. And I've got a all digital panel. So the avionics, some of these people have seen like the movies of airplanes. They got the round gauges with the little indicators on them.
Sure.
I got rid of all those. Mine are all digital.
Lots of glass, huh?
And yeah, so basically I have like the equivalent of a 10-inch iPad sitting in front of me with all the flight information on it, and all the radios are digital, and the autopilot's digital.
So
I
you're not
can walk in
afraid
the
of any
autopilot.
EMFs, huh?
No. Well, I got a wet compass. It doesn't attach to anything, so I can fly by compass if I have to.
Oh, good. I'm glad you got your backup.
I do.
Do you use the autopilot very much while you're flying?
Almost the whole way. I mean, I use it a lot. It just takes so much work out of flying.
Yeah.
And the Garmin autopilot's it's breathtaking in its capability in terms of holding an altitude and holding a course or heading.
So do you like watch movies while you're flying or look out the window?
Well, kind of in a way. I'm actually watching I'm watching all the screens, so I'm just monitoring all the systems as they're running. That's actually what happens in an airliner these days too. Everything's clapped on autopilot and auto throttle, even on an airliner. And so I have what's called a TAA, a technically advanced aircraft.
Oh.
Because of all the digital panels and stuff in it.
Yeah.
The plane is authorized to be used as a training platform if you wanted to, move into even higher performance aircraft.
Wow.
Because the systems are very similar. Even as you move up to the airliners. So the plane is actually holding a heading, a course, and an altitude, and then I'm actually just monitoring all the systems to make sure everything's running okay.
Cool. So what was the most challenging thing about getting this trip together?
Oh, gosh, the weather. We're a slave to the weather. Even a 737 can cheat a lot of weather, but there's even weather that it can't go into, and there's even less weather that I can go into.
Was there a particular front coming up that was concerning?
Yeah, so basically you got to look for, especially cumulus clouds that can develop into thunderstorms. Because you're winding up with downdrafts of 70 knots, which is, about
How
80
fast would you
some
drop?
miles.
If you ran into one of those, would you suddenly lose your lunch? What happens?
Oh,
when you have
yeah,
a downdraft
that and the
like
wings
that?
may break off if I'm going too fast. So you want to stay out of those. And so you're plotting where the weather is. The thing that surprised me the most about getting my pilot's license was you basically had to be a meteorologist.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to fly cross country across the United States, because you have to know all about, in fact, the maps that you got are even more detailed than the ones you see on TV about troughs and warm and cold fronts and included fronts and wind patterns and how weather develops and how storms develop and where they develop and the patterns of development they take. And you have to know all of that and stay out in front of it.
Sure. And I imagine, as you were saying, the different altitudes have very different weather. So it's like keeping track of the weather times 10 or something.
It's very true. And in fact, you have to look for things like icing at different altitudes, depending on the moisture content of the air. Ice can build up on wings, and it's just not a good thing because once you develop any type of icing on the control surfaces or on even the leading edge of the wings, it disrupts the air's ability to stick to the wing.
Ooh. Wow.
And, in which case you lose your ability to stay aloft. Yeah, Bernoulli's principle, which is kind of the fundamental law of how aircraft wings were designed.
Did you have radar as well when you're playing? Or?
Well, kind of. So that's a really good question. I have something called Airborne Dependency Surveillance System, ADSB. And it's a system that is attaches to my transponder. So my transponder is sending out my tail number, and it's sending out my location. And it's also through the system sending out my speed. So other aircraft in the area can pick that up. And in fact, that stuff goes down to a ground station, gets reamalgamated and sent back up for all pilots to look at and benefit from.
Yeah.
So in my airplane, I see weather down low, I see weather high, I see winds aloft, I see other aircraft.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about other aircraft, because when I flew a small plane, I had to look down, look forward, look to the right constantly. Like, we're always scanning for other aircraft. And I guess you're freed up from that with this system.
Yeah, so there's still aircraft around who don't have these systems, reporting systems in them, but they're getting fewer and fewer. And most of where you find them is when you're coming into Watsonville, for example, because it's not required to have them here at this airport. So when I'm approaching up the Salinas Valley, coming into Watsonville, my vigilance for watching other aircraft is really elevated because not only is there a lot of planes in this area that don't have that system, but you're also getting into a more confined space between the hills and the ocean.
Right.
So stuff's coming closer together. So that's where that hypervigilancy really pays off. When you're kind of going across country, like flying to Texas, there's this thing called the big sky principle. You're a little dot in the big sky, and it's really odd if you even almost come close to anybody as you're flying across the great wide open of the United States.
Yeah, big space.
And typically planes who are doing that have this system in them.
Huh. That's interesting. It reminds me that recently Elon Musk was talking about the population of the planet and whether or not we had too many people or not enough. And he was talking about one of the ways of gauging how close we are in population is how likely would it be that you would hit someone if you dropped a bowling ball off of an airplane. You know?
Well, there's some space junk that just hit.
Exactly. I was just going to mention that. There was a 10-centimeter piece of metal that fell off the International Space Station, hit a house in Florida.
Right.
Wow. Did it put a hole in the roof?
Yeah, it did. It was traveling at like supersonic speed.
Tens of thousands of miles. Yeah. An hour.
It was 10 centimeters, about 4 inches or something.
Right.
So the
space station is running at about 17 to 20,000 miles an hour in that orbital, something like that.
That's speedy. I can't fly that fast.
Yeah.
You'd have to if you were up as high as the space station.
How about the noise? What's your ambient sound in a Cessna 182?
Yeah, so I've got noise canceling headphones. They work really well for really cutting down the noise. And when I'm at cruise, actually, the prop is cut way back, so you can actually take the headset off if you want to, and you're kind of just, but it's not like it's, oh my God, it's splitting my head. It's
more handleable. But if you want to talk to Amy, do you talk by taking it off, or do you talk through the headphones?
They talk through the headset, so it's the plane has a digital intercom, so I
sounds
can talk
pretty
to all
good.
the passengers, and then if I have to push a button to talk to the radio, then that trumps any other communication within the aircraft.
Is it good quality? Like
crystal
we often,
clear.
Like we use clear comms very often in professional video gigs, where it sounds like you're there. That's like really
the quality is really good. So there's older systems that the radios and the intercom sound scratchy. I learned on some of those systems, and then when I got to the system I've got, which is just crystal clear sound.
Yeah.
I had to rent a plane a while back, so I was renting a plane, had one of these older intercoms, and it's like, oh my God, I was getting a headache. I can't hear half of what's happening.
That different, yeah. Wow.
Get me out of here, yeah.
Speaking of sound, I wanted to mention to our audience that you are very much an audiophile. You're very into building your own speakers and having good quality system. And this morning you were telling me about a new system that you've created that's just phenomenal. Could you tell our audience a little bit about what you've been doing with audio?
Oh, yeah. In fact, my buddy Seth, I think, might be listening. He should call in. He's heard it. I build my own amplifiers from scratch. And then I've also, which are just crystal clear sound. There's this amazing bandwidth and a super low noise floor. So all electronics makes background noise. And if you can get that to be real quiet, the lower you drop the noise floor, the more the micro aspects of the sound actually poke through. So you hear minutia in the recording that was masked by the noise level of other systems. And so when that noise level drops, it's now revealing additional content that was in the original source material. And a great example is I had somebody over, they're sitting on the couch and they're listening to Sgt. Pepper, which everybody knows, right?
Yeah, it was a really high quality audio recording originally too.
It is, especially the one that was remixed by Giles Martin. It's outstanding. And A Day in the Life, that song at the end, I think, Lennon's got the piano and he hits it in the key of F, that gong.
Oh, yeah, that final note that they build up to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it decays for 40 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, about halfway through it, you hear somebody squeaking a stool. And then you hear somebody going, shh.
Really?
And my friend just about leaped off the couch because he was like, holy crap, what was that? And I said, that's been in the recording since 1967. You just never heard it before because of the noise floor.
Oh, it took your speakers to reveal it, huh?
Now, you've been able to create this at home, like in a home system where you have this quality audio?
So it's been a pursuit of mine since I was a kid, actually. So I started really doing critical listening where you kind of meditate and you close your eyes and just listen to music. I started doing that when I was probably 5. I really enjoyed listening to music. And my parents were only 20 years older than me. So they're bringing home great albums. They're bringing home the Beatles. They're bringing home the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
My mom worked in a department store. And so she's got these amazing albums. And we would sit and listen to them as a family. And I'd critically listen. And it just developed over time as a hobby where I wanted better and better electronics and a better experience. And so I would grab old tube amplifiers and rebuild them. And I started making my own amplifiers.
Your own amplifier from scratch?
I recently started getting into making speakers.
Wow.
Is amplifier a tube amp or electronic?
I've done both. So I've got solid state, and the solid state one is unbelievably quiet. I hand picked all the components and hand matched them all, and it took many more hours to just pick out the parts than it did to actually put the thing together. But that's where the secret is in measuring all the parts and getting them to match and making sure they're at the extreme proper end of their quality range.
Hey,
somebody's got a 1% error.
1%,
a 1% drift. You're measuring it to make sure that they're all consistent within the same 1% of the band.
Hey, Bobby, have you been exploring audiophile electronics yourself?
Yeah, in my electronics class in high school, I built an amplifier, and it was a transistor amp. I built power supplies, and then in college, I took style formulas and built my own speakers and tuned my woofer that way, and so I got into it in big time. In college, everybody was competing with who had the best stereo system, in the dorm.
Oh, no wonder you're so interested in the microphones that we're always experimenting
with. Bobby's always bringing in new microphones. We're trying all the time, Dave.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, Bobby's got an ear. That's good.
Hey, listen, I wanted to just give the phone number out for the show in case your friend Seth is there or anybody else wants to call in, 831-265-5050. The lines are live. If you feel like you got something you want to share or ask Dave a question or give us some advice, it's all yours.
So this latest audio project of yours, Dave, is it complete? You have further designs on making it even better or what?
I want to do some more work on a passive preamp for the volume control, but I've got a really great DAC, a digital. So I use a Macintosh as the music server, and I've got a 4 terabyte digital library.
Wow.
And a lot of the material is audiophile quality. It's what they call 2496 or 24192 or DSD files. So I've got all of that ripped onto a hard drive, and it's incredibly high resolution, greatly exceeding the resolution of even an LP.
Wow.
And it's a lot quieter than an LP. The background is just black, no noise.
Hey, I want to let you know we have a caller. I'm not sure who it is just yet. Seth, I guess. Hi, Seth.
Hi, this is Seth calling from Hawaii.
Hey, Seth. Welcome to the show.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I had the opportunity. I've known David for a number of years, and he actually invited me down. I live in Oregon, and we spent a few days putting that speaker system he's talking about together. I'm an audiophile lick like David, but it was actually amazing. The tonal qualities and everything we were able to experience together. I thought we were listening to a $80,000 speaker system. And you stop listening to information, you start listening to music. Wow. And you just get transfixed by the experience, whether it's emotional or whatever. And it's just easy on the ears. Yeah. It was a fantastic experience. It was. Yeah.
Wow. And you also bring up an interesting point about that. $80,000. What is something that you're talking about, Dave? What are we talking about in terms of cost?
Well, since it's all DIY, it's just, it's the parts. Seth actually helped me rip the birch plywood on the table saw. Seth cut out the holes for the speakers in the panels.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
I see. So now I take it this is all analog and
No, that's digital. Right?
Oh, it's digital. See, I know nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amp is analog. The music's digital, and it goes through a digital analog converter, and then it's an analog amp to the speakers.
Wow.
And that's right. You'd have to spend basically the cost of a house in the Midwest to get a system that sounds this good commercially.
Or call you guys.
Yeah. To give you an idea, the solid state amplifier I've got, that was about $700 in parts. Mm-hmm. There's a version of that amp that's sold commercially, and it's in the multi-thousands to buy it. Wow. Speakers, I think I've got $500 into the speakers in terms of all the basic parts. But the key is being able to balance the parts. There's such an incredible raft of offerings. And the hardest thing about hi-fi is pairing things together so that everything matches and is in balance with itself.
Uh-huh. What kinds of criteria have to match? Is it size? Is it frequency? Is it volume? Is it controllers?
Yeah,
what kind of things?
There's a fundamental component of just size. A lot of people just want small speakers, especially the wives. They want small speakers. They don't want anything big. The problem is that you need surface area to push sound because you're actually moving air. And like if you're listening to a chamber orchestra or a concert, those wind instruments in an orchestra are moving a tremendous amount of air inside the auditorium. And you've got to be able to move that kind of air to be able to replicate the sound. And so you actually need a lot of surface area on the speakers to be able to push that.
Wow.
And these particular speakers I have, each woofer is 18 inches. So there's 227 square inches of surface area in each speaker, each woofer. And then I've got an 8-inch full range driver. So I've got those two things working in sync with each other.
And so do you
And
feel
it's
this in your
perfect phase.
spine when you got a beat going? You feeling it as a physical thing in your body?
Seth, maybe you can describe this. It's like an arm that reaches out and grabs you by the throat and pulls you into the content. It's just amazing how you get drawn in. It's a visceral experience because you feel like the instrument is right in front of you being played.
Dave, I think you're going to have to start having some dance parties. I don't think you can keep this to yourself much longer, man.
And I had the room acoustically treated too. That was also really important.
You have a special room in your house where you experience this audio.
Yeah, we specialize in light shows.
That was our side of the equation. Yeah,
we combine them.
Yeah.
And then Seth, you've got an amazing pair of speakers too.
What's up with you, Seth? What have you been doing with this?
For me, I didn't build it, okay, because I'm not a tech. I just enjoy.
Yeah.
And that's why I called David Engineer Dave. Because
that's what he is.
He is a lot of talents.
And actually understand those squiggly lines, And so for me, it's been a journey. I grew up around classical, and then I got really into jazz and opera. And so there's no substitute for live performance, of course. But what you're attempting is to reproduce that live experience, that you are there perception and feeling. And you asked about a visceral. It's like my speakers I have, I'm going into detail, you can feel it go into the lower registers, and you can feel the highs, and you can get an aspect of placement, like, oh, there's Bill Evans, he's playing right there, on the piano, and then so-and-so. But with Dave now, it goes to a point that it's not only visceral, you just feel it. It's almost like it goes underneath the ground, and it goes up into your body. And it's not because it plays super loud either. It's not you're melting the windows or anything else. It's just accurate reproduction.
It's moving the air.
That'd be the best. Yeah.
With a high level of presence, it sounds like, with that.
Absolutely.
Now, have you guys looked at what it would take to record an environment so that it sounds really good later with microphones?
Actually, Seth knows more about the recordings than I do. Tell him about like multi-track and simply mic'd and all that, Seth.
Yeah, it's not a lot, but it's evolved so much because initially, even with the Beatles, I think it was just like 4-track. In other words, they could record and then just overlay the music on top of it. And then through technology, it's infinite. So the problem with multi-tracking is that sometimes you can lose the essence of the live recording because they may record the musical instruments in 5 days and then the vocalist will come in and sing over it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Sometimes it loses a little bit if you are listening for that. So the quality of the mic, you go back to classical music, Mercury recordings, our living stereo, which is late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah.
They would just have 2 microphones set up for stereo and then 1 for mono because they still had mono then. Now that you might have 40 microphones.
Each instrument.
Seriously, engineer has to, I feel sorry for, he has to like try to reproduce the ambiance, the essence, the ambiance of the room and everything.
Yeah.
So I kind of like coolers better, basically, to sum it, and that's what they're getting back to, just full miking and all of that. Yeah.
Has the technology improved much in being able to improve the quality of old recordings?
I'll let David take that one.
Yes, there's a technology, especially some AI technology, that clears out some of the hiss and clicks and some of the background noise that was on tape, or that was an artifact of the technology itself.
Wow.
Like you may have hum at the lower level from, a tube system that didn't have a proper ground or ground loop in it. And so AI is pretty good about stripping that stuff out while retaining the music that was underneath it.
Yeah, I was wondering, what do you do? What AI are you using and how are you using it?
Yeah, and that's what happened. And that's why the Beatles were able to create that last song that they came out with, which is said will be the last one, called Now and Then, because it was a really crappy cassette demo that George Harrison and John Lennon did.
Yeah.
And so Paul McCartney was able to just scrub the living daylights out of that.
Well, they were able to split the musical from the voice, which they could never do before, so that they could amplify them separately. Right?
Yes. Yeah. And that was kind of a good example. Most of what we're seeing now is that, especially as the old, I listen to a lot of classic rock. I mean, 60s, 70s, 80s is kind of my thing. And as all these old guys are getting in their 70s and 80s, they're trying to figure out what their swan song is going to be, their final legacy. And they've been going through and remixing, and they've been remixing in Pro Tools. And you're getting a stunning clarity. Yes, Rolling Stones, Beatles, Jethro Tull, name a few. Also, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. They've all gone through and remixed their material off the original source tapes.
Yeah,
using
awesome.
digital techniques instead of the old analog. And wow, did that just take a veil of fog off?
Amazing.
The sound.
Wow.
We're in the last minute here, Dave.
So much to talk about. One other thing.
It's so fun.
Do you recommend any website if people want to know more about audiophiles today or anything like that? Is there a user group, anything that you'd recommend?
If you want to do it yourself, there's a site called DIYaudio.com.
DIYaudio.com.
A community of people who put this together, and there's kits available there, or you can roll your own completely from scratch. But a lot of engineers all helping.
Okay, well, fantastic. Well, Dave, appreciate your attention. Sean, thanks for calling in. And
Seth, great hearing from you
Seth
too,
and
Bobby. And all you Future Now people.
Yeah, next time we'll talk more about your China stuff, what you've been tracking on that, Dave. We'll have you back.
Absolutely.
David Welch.
Yeah,
Santa
David
Cruz
Welch.
Voice. And you can listen to him on Thursdays.
Yes.
3 to 5.
3 to 5. Thursdays, 3 to 5. Thanks for listening, everyone.